Alright, good evening everybody. It's KB5MIQ Big Boy. Got a couple of subjects we're going to talk about tonight, but kind of want to show y'all something that how I do my QSL cards I receive. It's one of my favorite parts of the hobby is sending and receiving QSL cards. So I'm going to show you that and pause in a second and we're going to talk about a couple of subjects. Okay, excuse my shack. My ham shack's more of a ham shack. It's my reloading room, gun working on room, rod and reel, and everything else. But I'm gonna flip this thing around. Okay, I've redone all my cards lately. I got this section here. It's nothing but islands that I've worked. This helps me keep track of stuff when I'm listening to it on the air. This is just islands I've worked. This section here is what I call island nations, like Japan, Australia, the really big continents that I still consider islands. That's a set of car tags I had on a pickup one time. This is my very first Amateur Radio Relay League World Map. This out of nostalgia, I can't take it down. I've used to use it, but now I use Mr. Nifty's quick references. I separate all my other countries out. This column here is all Central American countries. One row is Central American countries I've worked. This column here is other countries, mostly European continents, European countries, Africa, countries like that. Here's my states. I got them started by call district 0. The blue post-it notes are states I like, getting worked all states. And I just go around here and I just keep them separated like that. And I'll kind of explain more why I do that here in a minute. This is the end of the states. Now, don't worry if you don't have a card. Make a card. I got a card there from Michigan from that guy. It's a handmade card. It goes on the wall just like the rest of them. It verifies the contact. Okay, drop down here. These are specialty cards I've got. One, couple of special event stations. Of course, there's W5DLX card. There's my original card that I got started with years ago. That's my current card. HKV's current card. Let's see, I had another one here. Another WD5ETT, that's W5MAS now. This card here, I didn't even know who this guy was when I worked him. I worked him on 10 as a special event station. That's Alan Keek, used to be editor of CQ Magazine. I think he's a Silent Key now. And the last card I'm going to show you is Jeff's original card. And I'll let y'all in the comments tell me what that really looks like. We're going to try to keep this a friendly, G-rated station. But anyway, let me switch this camera back around. I'm going to pause it. Well, I'm going to put this in the middle of those two videos. One other thing I was going to bring up. I saw this ad, and it kind of made me think, because you hear people talking about how expensive this hobby is, and it's an expensive hobby. I'm not going to lie to you. It's an expensive hobby. I've told one of my earlier videos how much my 701 I had cost new in '79 when it come out. This gives you another idea of how much difference radio prices are versus salary and things like that we're seeing today. This is from a 1960 ad for Henry Radio. And this is what a lot of guys still consider it the Cadillac of the radios, a Collins KWM2 transceiver. Cash price in 1960 was $1,095. And it says here that's when minimum wage was $1 an hour. And you can buy a Yaesu 891 for a little over $600 new right now. 718s are 600 range. So just give you an idea of what this stuff costs. It's always been kind of expensive, but honestly, new gear is cheaper than it was when I got in the hobby. This talks about here, gives you the transceiver, the KWM2 SSB transceiver was $10.95. The 3OS1 linear amplifier was $1,470. And it just goes down the list. So I know people think this hobby's expensive, and in lots of ways it is, but it's still, I think, cheaper to get into the hobby now than it even was when I got into it in 92, 91. Okay, well, that's going to be right in the middle of this video. One reason I separate my cards out like it helps me keep track of if I hear a station whether I've worked it or not without having to dig through the log book, because I don't use a logging program. I do use the QRZ log book, and most of my logs still written logs. And this is my I handle. I'm not telling you guys how to do this. I'm just telling you how I handle this. I love to work DX calls, and I'll answer anybody's CQ call. If I hear a station calling CQ and nobody answers them the second time they call CQ, I'm going to answer them. Whether I've worked the state or country or not, I'm going to answer them. Now, if I've worked the state or the country and I know it and there's a pile up on the guy, I'm going to just use my version of ham radio etiquette. I'm not going to add to the pile up to make a contact with a station I've already, a country or state I've already worked. That's just my viewpoint on that. Get some cards printed. It's a great way to keep this hobby alive and keep it going. And I really think sending QSL cards is a really good aspect of this hobby. All right, we'll bring up a couple of subjects here that I've been kind of watching on social media. And in fact, I may put this ad picture in this video when I post it. But let me go in here and find my saved stuff. Okay. Newbie question. I'm not going to read the guy's name. Is it okay to just turn off the power supply, which shuts off the radio? Or is that a no-no? Turn off the radio, then turn off the power supply. HKV and I just talked about this tonight. And this is kind of both of us in agreement on this. He has said he has always turned his radio off first. And I'm not going to lie to you, on this Kenwood, I've cut the power supply off some on it. But this Yaesu 897, I always turn the radio off. Strictly because, you know, these are multi-function screen radios. They got a CPU in them a little bit. So I always just reach over, turn the radio off. And also, I've got to have it now, I turn this Kenwood off. Now, I want you to notice something. You may not, you can see the lights. You can see this light still lit up on this LDG meter. When I kill the power supply to it, it takes a minute for it to bleed down and go out. So that's probably, I'm not going to say it'll hurt anything, but it's like a computer. You know, you shut a computer down a certain way, and you need to shut the radio down and shut the power supply off. That's my viewpoint on it. You know, older radios, I think, would have been more forgiving on that. But these newer radios, I think that's probably the best policy to go with. Here's another new question. He's talking about how to determine range on a 2-meter radio setup, and talking about different types of antennas and being on a budget, which is what I've always been about. It's what we keep his hobby about. And he's getting all kinds of answers from everything under the sun about what works, what people say their antenna is, and all that. But he's trying to figure out range of a radio. So here I'm going to give you my take on that for what it's worth, and I don't want to make the experts' heads explode by saying that. But dealing with VHF, UHF range, whether it be base to repeater, base to base, mobile to repeater, or talkie to repeater, or talkie to talkie. So you got to remember this. The big factor in VHF, UHF, in my opinion, is location and terrain between point A and point B. Now, if you're in the Great Salt Flat, you're going to talk a long ways. That's what I've always made jokes about, them 10-mile range Motorola deer hunting FMRS radios, deer hunting radios I call them. I say they got a 10-mile range. Well, yeah, they might have a 10-mile range at the salt flat. They don't have a 10-mile range in northeast Texas. I can tell you, hey, ham radio cat, I can tell you that right now. But another thing to consider on figuring range, antenna height to me is the most important thing, especially in a base setup. Now, these talkies, that's just a vertical antenna, omnidirectional, sends the same amount of signal out in every direction. Doesn't have any gain in any one direction. And even say if you're running a Ringo Ranger, or Comet, or a Diamond, dual band, quarter wave, whatever, vertical antenna, no matter how high you got it, that antenna is only going so far the same way in all directions, omnidirectional. Now, to get more range out of a VHF radio, and you're talking a base, say base to repeater, and your repeater is, say, 50 miles away, and I'll give you a good example of that. I've had two vertical antennas up 50 foot. One was and I've still got it, the Diamond 2-meter 440 quarter wave vertical, which is a good little antenna. It's a lot better antenna than the antenna I'm fixing to tell you I put up. The second antenna I tried was a Tram 1481 dual band 5/8 wave. That antenna I didn't like from day one. It was heavy, had a lot of pull on a push-up pole, and honestly, I got more repeaters with the quarter wave Diamond than I ever got with that one. But neither one of them would hit the Texarkana 6.2 repeater, and I'm right at 50 miles from it. Then HKV give me and DLX enough material and the directions to build a 3-element 2-meter Yagi. Now I took my pole down, I put that 3-element Yagi up 50 feet. And I'm full quiet into the Texarkana repeater 50 miles away. And I'm hitting other repeaters that I couldn't hit even further away, but they happen to be up on a mountain. Another thing to remember on base to a repeater, or a talkie to a repeater, or a mobile to a repeater. Your repeaters are always going to be polarized vertical, the same way with a polarized vertical Yagi. But say your repeater is 300 foot in the air, and you're 50 foot in the air with a base antenna, which is, it'll see it. It's a line of sight VHF, it's got to be able to see it. Most cases, you're going to get 25 to 50 miles unless you live in mountainous terrain. And then you're going to run into all kinds of problems. We was talking about that tonight. Signals refracting off mountains and going in different directions. And if you're behind the mountain and you're on one side, hit on the other, you're not going to have any luck with it. So it's really hard to narrow down any one particular factor that's going to help you figure the range of your station out. Now, go with a good example. Even a better antenna on a talkie will extend the range of it. This particular talkie, I can hit a repeater about 23 miles away from me in my house with this antenna on it. With this other antenna on this, and this is a 5 watt, that's the 8 watt version. I can't hit it. But I can hit other repeaters, but it depends on your line of sight, the terrain, and everything that's in between it. It's hard to narrow range down by any one thing, especially VHF. But I'll give you another good example. Years ago, he's silent key now, a guy named N5 QOI had a Ringo Ranger up about 50 feet, 2-meter Ringo Ranger. He lived about 12 miles northwest of me as the crow flies, and he was a net control for a net out of Neshoba, Oklahoma, which is a pretty good haul up there, and he was full quiet into it. I never could hit the repeater for my house. I never could. On that vertical, I didn't have. I've tried it with this Yagi. It's been years later. I don't know if the repeater's still operational, but I can't hit it. So evidently, there's some terrain feature from where I live that's blocking my line of sight. Even 50 miles of Paris, Texas, there's several repeaters now I can hit with this Yagi toward Texarkana. But 50 miles to Paris, about 8 miles west of me, I've got a big, kind of a, not really a mountain, but a high hill terrain feature that the land drops way off on the other side. And I could hit one repeater in Paris now, and I'm not real good into it. But I couldn't even hit it before. So it's really hard to iron out one thing. I know people giving you a lot of information on feed line and type antennas and power, and all of that makes a difference, but you really need to look at your location, the height of your antenna you're capable to get up, and what's between you and the repeaters you're trying to work. A 25 watt radio versus a 50 watt radio, I'm not sure how much difference that will make. I believe you'd be better off with getting an antenna as high as you can get it in the air, something with some gain on it, even a 3-element Yankee. You can look back at my videos and you can see the plan how to make this 3-element Yankee if you got access to a old TV antenna. Okay, everybody, we hit 391 on the subscribers. We're 9 away from me giving that book away. And I hope we get to do that here in the next video or two and get this book out to somebody. Hopefully a new tech or a new ham wanting to be a ham can win this thing. We're trying to promote the hobby any way we can. Well, I appreciate everybody who subscribed to the channel. Remember, Main Trading Company in Paris, Texas. MTC Radio Online, I believe, is their online address. Good place for ham radio gear. Got a lot of stuff in stock. Your club pages, 4 States Amateur Radio, Cowtown Amateur Radio, Dallas Amateur Radio, Shreveport Amateur Radio, all good places for information. If you're in an area that's any kind of built up area and you're looking for ham radio information, just do a search on Facebook, and if they've got a page, it'll come up. Ham Radio Flea Market Trading Post, Amateur Radio Elmer's, Texas Amateur Ham Radio, all good Facebook pages for information. I want to thank everybody who subscribed to the channel. We enjoy putting these out. Hope everybody has a great, safe Labor Day weekend. KB5MIQ is my call sign. We're still meeting on 10 Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday nights. We're usually on 28,450, but sometimes we go up to 470 if there's somebody already on frequency. And we start at 7:30 Central Standard Time, and usually on there 45 minutes or so. If you hear us, we'd love to have you check in with us. My email is posted on my QRZ page. Leave me a comment here. Send me an email if you got any questions. This is KB5MIQ Big Boy 73.